Hello, everybody, and welcome to another session of Think Human. We are revisiting intent data again this month. Alex, who is sitting in the offstage in the green room at the moment, is back and is much better, thankfully. He obviously wasn't able to join us last month, and so this session is going to be focused on sales and how you can get for advantage with intent data. So my name is Riaz Kanani. I am the founder and CEO of Radiate B2B. I'm your host for today, and I'll bring Alex in a second, but some quick housekeeping before we get started. Thank you for joining us. Whenever we do these things, we are looking at a screen rather than at your faces, and so please do share any emojis or thoughts in the chat. We do see them. We'll take questions as we go along. So put your questions into the chat and we will pull them into the conversation. We believe in getting feedback. It's one of the things we often talk about, making sure everybody does listen to your customer, etc., etc. And we always run a feedback survey. You should see it pop up in the chat shortly, and as well throughout the session. For every one of you that completes that feedback survey, we donate to charity. So please do. The charity that we're donating to is called Magic Breakfast. And especially in these times of high cost of living, more and more kids are going without meals like breakfast. And so what the charity does is it makes sure that kids are able to have a hearty breakfast and are able to get to school without feeling hungry. So please do complete those. The links just popped into the chat I can see now. So just before I bring Alex in, a quick few words about me and Radiate. My background has been 20 years in ad tech, martech, sales tech, so go-to-market technology platforms, basically, helping teams to scale internationally. I've worked with big brands, small brands, and been lucky enough to have a few exits along the way. I stopped, or at least I said I'd stop doing startups about 10 years ago, and about 4 or 5 years ago, I came back to build another platform called Radiate B2B. And what we do is we help sales teams to know exactly who they should be speaking to today. We use intent data. We provide intent data for smaller, mid-sized companies that are selling to enterprise, and the aim being to maximize the performance of your sales teams. With that said, let's dive into the session. I'm hoping Ivan, who has just messaged in the chat, can see and hear what I'm saying. Let me bring in Alex. Alex, welcome.
Hello, hello. Good to be here.
Yes. Thank you for joining us. Why don't you introduce yourself to get us started, and then we can dive into the topic.
Yeah, so jumping straight in. So Alex from Supero, 22 years in B2B sales and marketing. So I'd say kind of two halves to that. The first half as an individual contributor, as a sales rep. Second half very much as a sales leader, building, growing sales organizations. I'd say for around 15 years, though, I've felt that kind of marketing should really be a function of sales. You may or may not agree. Certainly if revenue growth is the objective. Some of the highlights in my, you want to ask a question there, don't you?
I'm gonna bite my tongue, and we will touch on it maybe a bit later.
Okay. Some of the highlights that I think are relevant. So in that time, built a business from kind of 0 to $22 million within a 4-year period, from 1 to around 40 people. Within a 12-month period, transformed a product-led sales approach to a more value-led approach, quadrupling the average order value. And, I'd say and this isn't blowing my own trumpet, but kind of it will sound like it, but 5 President Club wins across 3 different companies along the way. So, I feel that wasn't a fluke if there were 5 and they were across 3 different organizations, but hopefully that helps with the conversation today.
You're quite clearly, Alex, a Brit who's worked in an American business. So.
Yeah, indeed. One was called Sales Elite. That was the UK business, but I'm calling it President's Club because I think everyone's familiar with that.
Exactly, as a concept. Brilliant. Yeah, no, I know you've got a huge amount of experience in sales and sales leadership, and we've obviously been working with you for over a year now with Intent Data, and what we wanted to discuss and talk about today is really drill into Intent Data and how it looks. But before we do that, one thing is I don't agree with you in terms of marketing reporting into sales. I think there's a part of marketing that should support sales, and I absolutely think sales and marketing should work together. But I think marketing should be broader than just supporting sales.
Yeah. I've got a very blinkered view though, right? Because
you look at it from the sales perspective,
yeah.
Right? And you're right in that sense. From what sales needs, marketing should absolutely be providing that, in my view. Anyway, I don't want to spend an hour talking about sales versus marketing. We will do that session again, I think, early next year. So what I want to do now is maybe set the scene a little bit, right? Why is it that we're seeing Intent Data come to the fore today, and what is it that you're seeing, Alex?
Yeah, I think I think that if we look at the kind of the last 10 or so years, it's harder. It's getting harder and harder to generate pipeline and new business, and close rates are declining. Average order values, are declining. Depending on which research you listen to, Gartner, Forrester, they're all kind of saying the same thing. Not that we in sales need that to validate what's actually happening, but the buyers are kind of 70 to 90% of the way through their purchase decision before they invite a supplier to pitch. Buyers are saying they want a rep-free experience. So, they're doing their research. They're speaking to their peers. They're often making that shortlist before they even put their hand up and say, come talk to me. So, any enabler. I nearly said tools, but we're going to come on to technology later. But any enabler, I think, that helps an organization understand where to look is going to save them time.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's one of the biggest reasons for me why intent data is becoming or is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've talked a bit about the dark funnel in the past, right? Where you talked about sales not being contacted till 70-90% through that sales process, and that does mean there's a lot of activity happening that's invisible to vendors. One of the things we talked about in the run-up to this session was how the sales tech industry has literally caused this very problem.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on that?
I do. Yeah, I think I guess so for the first sort of decade of my experience in the industry, sales tech wasn't really a thing. Your success was reliant kind of purely, apart from CRM systems, but I'm not really sort of counting that per se, but your success was reliant entirely on your ability to build relationships. And technology sort of came content and technology together came into the mid-end 2000s to 2010, and we were kind of moving to this place where we were inundated with just kind of machine gunning content to our audience using technology and then starting to rely on technology. And I feel that there's been too much reliance on sales tech to do the job that sales people should really be doing, which is focusing on building meaningful relationships with people, as opposed to what's my 26-point cadence of sales messaging that I'm going to automate in my sales tech.
Yeah, absolutely. And like anything, when tech generally is an accelerator of capability, it should be. It should increase your capability, make you able to do more things. And when it works, I've watched this countless times. It shifts from that early majority to the big hump in the middle, the mainstream, and in that period, you lose a lot of the nuance around what makes sales tech, in this case, or marketing tech, great. What are the ways you need to think about it, and it all becomes about the shortcut. And
yeah,
it's the same in sales tech as in marketing tech, where when something works, you use it to death. Until it stops working, or you have to change your approach.
But have we not become sort of caught in this downward spiral of we wanting the sale and wanting the transaction? So trying to turn up the dial because it once worked, as opposed to actually stepping back and thinking, well, we need to do something different.
Well, it used to be 3 to 5 emails, wasn't it? Get a response, and it's now 9 to 11. And let's face it, if you've emailed somebody 9 times in a short period of time, you've pissed them off.
And hence I think I mean, I've heard 12, and I've even I was chatting to someone at a conference last month, and they've got a 26-point message cadence as part of their approach. I think companies doing that are hoping to find that percentage of people that are in market, which is between 1% and 5% of any given territory. And if you haven't built a relationship with that 1% to 5%, they're unlikely to give you an opportunity to pitch anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also partially due to the changing demographics of buyers. The newer buyers that are becoming decision makers are much more, they've grown up with the internet. They understand how to research, and they talk a lot digitally with their peers, and so they're much more sophisticated in terms of their digital buying capabilities, if you like.
And less likely to want to speak to a salesperson as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, I think that stat of the majority of people not wanting to talk to a sales rep is interesting, and it's led to obviously a product-led growth conversation that's been happening in the industry. And I actually think, I mean, when it comes to enterprise sales, what people really mean is they don't want to be sold to. It's not that they don't want to talk to a salesperson. What they want to do is they want to talk to somebody who actually will help them and support them and get them to their answer quicker. And so when you ask slightly different questions, you get more interesting answers, I think.
Yeah, indeed. It's that 83% of buyers wanting a rep-free buying experience. In that same research, 79% say they want the ability to ask human beings questions.
Right.
And I think this is you're kind of touching on a really important topic today, which is the role of the salesperson, the persona and the profile of the traditional salesperson. I think is changing from sales to guide, and buyers want to be guided through. Certainly in complex B2B sales, buyers want to be guided through the purchase process. because it's as equally hard to buy as it is for us to sell.
That's right. And actually, Kyle over at Clary posted on LinkedIn, may have been this morning, may have been yesterday, a quote from a CRO who was talking to, which talked about sales people not asking, or rather than asking what are the problems that they have, but actually telling them what problems they should be thinking about. What is an issue for them. And so it is that advisor role, in a way, that consultative role, especially, and again, we're focusing on enterprise sales here, not other sales techniques.
Yeah, Brent Adamson talks about this a lot.
Does he?
Challenger, in terms of teaching your buyer a new perspective, teaching them things about their business that they don't yet know about. And I do think that is key, especially when we're seeking to build rapport and trust quickly within, when we meet new people. But we're also, we've kind of from a marketing perspective, when I think about pipeline, when we bring this to kind of pipeline, I think marketers have sort of now overdone it with that insight-led approach. Oh, well, if that's what we need to do, let's teach everybody. Let's teach everybody within our target audience. But the problem is every company is now doing that. So the point of differentiation becomes diluted.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been of the view for a while now that the way you do B2B marketing is having to change just as much as the B2B sales side. Mark's got a question talking about, what is your message to salespeople working with their partner managers? Can you comment on the value partnerships have on the challenger sale for the salesperson?
I can tell you a bit of a story from my time within a big corporate, and I don't know if this specifically answers the question, Mark, so maybe come back to it if it doesn't. But I think that the partner function within an organization needs to be very, very tightly aligned to the go-to-market sales strategy. And that might just be taken as a given, but from my experience, it isn't. And so, if you've designed that value proposition and you've identified the ideal customer profile, the ideal partner profile, and you're recruiting partners that are aligned to that sales go-to-market strategy, the two functions should work in harmony, very much like the sales and marketing alignment piece. It's when one sort of starts to go off and do their own thing that it has an adverse effect. In terms of challenger, back to my days, when I was, trying to help recruit partners that I wanted to be aligned, strategic partners to be aligned to our go-to-market sales strategy at the time. There was a lot of education that we would do, even as a sales team, with those partners to help them understand how to position our technology. And in some cases, teach them how to provide services that supported the technology. And if we were able to do that successfully with partners, they were more likely to become a strategic partner that would then deliver a lot more with us together.
Yeah, that is a key thing, isn't it? I guess is that that is the advantage of working with partners, is that you get the ability to have a closer relationship with the prospect without actually having that in place, because you've got that relationship between the partner and the prospect.
Yeah. And now rereading, it's difficult to read whilst you're talking, but now rereading Mark's question, I think, you know, any organization that is going through the challenger sale training should be involved in that training, right? Mm-hmm. In my opinion, it's not just sales that should be trained on the challenger sale. It's all customer facing, revenue facing teams within the organization that really need to understand how you teach, tailor, and take control of certain conversations and how you position value.
Great. Okay, I want to switch to the focus, obviously, of today's session on intent data. And it probably makes sense to start with a definition of what intent data is, because like all hot terms, there are plenty of companies, plenty of technologies that have now calling themselves intent data, and they are intent data, but to different degrees. Isn't that right? What are the various intent data options out there, Alex, that you've seen that work? And I'll drill in a little bit afterwards as well if I need to.
Is that a leading question, Riyadh?
Well, not really. I don't mean it is you only use Radiate. I mean, there's different types, right? There's different types that do different things.
Yeah. So you're referring to the likes of G2 versus Radiate?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's exactly right. That why don't I answer it a little bit, right? Is you've got both first party intent, where you've got people interacting with your content anonymously, through to publisher type content where you're monitoring anonymous activity across publishers. Those are the two that Radiate focuses on. Mm-hmm. You've then got event data attendance, which is now called intent, and that's what I meant when I was talking about different what's been traditionally around anyway, that is now called intent. But then you've also got things like community review websites like G2, which also provide intent, and they all have their place, I think, and they all give different pieces of information, and our goal at Radiate is actually to try and combine all this together. The idea, of course, being behind intent data that you can identify signals that suggests there's a level of intent or level of interest there that might make it more likely that they are interested in having a conversation. Is that what? Is that how you do it, Alex? Do you have anything else to add around it?
Well, so it reminds me of, you know, having my entire kind of B2B sales career has been selling, you know, marketing, advertising technology. So I feel like I've got a bit of a head start on this topic anyway. Yeah. You know, the holy grail for marketers is to create a 360-degree view of the customer. And understand that from both the known customer world as well as the anonymized world. And I think the same is true for B2B. You know, I'd love to have the insight to understand, prospective customer intent. You know, what is it that my ideal customers are interested in? What is it that they're doing? Which event have they been to? Was I at the same event? You know, bringing all of that together in one view is, I think, incredibly valuable, very, very powerful.
Yeah. It seems obvious, doesn't it? Really. Now, your major focus as a business is obviously social selling, and I know you have strong views on why social selling is important today and how that relates back to the environment we were just talking about. Do you want to drill into that and why it's becoming more important?
Yeah, I think firstly, I should probably kind of address the term social selling, because I think it can mean different things to different people.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, a lot of people think social selling is selling on social. Which it isn't, in my view. I mean, some of the things that we've spoken about before, the sales messaging and the cadences, and
Yeah.
if you think you can just do that on LinkedIn or Twitter or any other platform and be successful, you can't.
Yeah, and exactly. And to your point, it depends on your definition of selling, doesn't it? So in my view, that's not selling. That's well, abusing, maybe a strong word.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does depend on your definition, doesn't it?
It
so
does.
What does it mean to you?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, often I hear marketers, when I'm talking to marketers, when I talk about social selling, is, oh, okay, so yeah, we post a lot of content on LinkedIn and we get our sales teams to share that. Again, that's not social selling. For me, if I was to define it, or certainly try and simplify it, it's about three things. It's about your personal brand, and actually thinking about how or what you want to be known for, what you want to be famous for. How you look when people come to your digital profile, whether that's LinkedIn, Twitter, Guild, or any other platform you might be using.
Yeah.
But also consciously developing that over time, so that you're thinking about how you stand out and can be remembered. The second is network growth, and having a strategy and a real kind of sense of purpose about the speed in which you're growing your network, who you're connecting to. And again, depending on which social platform you're using, will depend on the effect that can have. LinkedIn, for example, it's really important to connect to as many people as possible within an account that you might be targeting, so that you increase your visibility, so that your personal brand can be seen by the people that you might be struggling to get in front of.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is around content creation. And so so many sales people think it's the job of marketing or product marketing to create the content that they can then use for selling. And they're missing an opportunity. They're missing an opportunity to create their own human-based content to drive engagement from the audience that they've spent so long trying to connect to help that audience get to know them. So that's linked to personal brand, but it's for me, it's those three things.
Yeah, and that's tricky, isn't it? Because as a company, it's very easy for you to have marketing create content that you pass across to sales that's supposed to be used in exactly the same way, no edits whatsoever, and that gives control to the message, right? But the minute you do that, you lose that authenticity, you lose that human touch that you're talking about there. And so is it a mix of both? Is it where you get guidance from the product marketing teams and that to support the salesperson, alongside the salesperson also then generating their own content within a context of your business?
I think guidance and training and coaching are key to give that direction, that confidence, that support to the sales team. But equally, it's also marketing viewing it differently. So, instead of the fully finished, polished article or blog or video, whatever it might be, creating it on the, with the understanding that you're helping, you're enabling, you're empowering the salesperson or people to then sprinkle their own kind of personality on it, or human touch on it, or point of view. And you can, you can create the guardrails for that, for that specific type of company or corporate content. But equally, you want to give the people, the sales people, the freedom to be creative and kind of amplify their personal brand.
Yeah. And how does intent data fit into into this?
Yeah. So intent data is really helpful in knowing where to focus your time.
Mm-hmm.
And so and there's a bigger conversation. I think we might come onto it in terms of focus account versus volume account approach.
Okay. Yeah.
Depending on your strategy. We find that using intent data together with the social selling approach can have a really positive effect. So anywhere between 30 to 50% increase in the meeting generation rate by using that intent data, but using it in a way that is still relationship first, as opposed to, someone's showing some sort of intent, and that means I can go and sell to them.
Yeah.
Or so that means I can go and contact them and say, hey, I noticed you're interested in X, which has the opposite effect.
So it goes back to the old adage of you don't propose on your first date, right? So you may know there's an interest there, or you may think there's an interest there based on the intent data, but what you're saying is that first approach is still about building relationship. It's not about the hard sell.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do not want to look creepy like the stalker.
Yeah, well, it's like the companies that used to identify visitors to your website, and that you'd pick up the phone and there would be a 500% drop off if you called them after the first 5 minutes. But if you called them within that first 5 minutes, you scared the living daylights out of them, and so you almost, if you weren't very careful, you would lose them. As a result.
Yeah, I'm surprised today to hear of companies that aren't using intent data. We should also probably, I should add, depending on the maturity of your organization and how much you're investing in driving traffic to your website, not every business has the luxury of lots of new traffic coming to their website every month. So when I talk about intent data in this context, the value certainly that I've seen working with Radiate B2B is that offsite intent data.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about knowing where to spend time in focus account versus volume accounts, it's that complete unknown. You mentioned the dark funnel earlier.
Yeah. So
within the accounts that we're targeting, where are those signals? Or for that ideal customer for Supero, or client X, which companies are exhibiting signals, behaviors that would imply that they're interested in the product or service you offer, and they've never been to the website yet.
No, they're not aware of you at all at this point. They're early in the sales process. They haven't done any research enough to identify.
Yeah, because there's lots of solutions out there that do that sort of on-site intent based on their first-party behavior.
Yeah.
What would it imply? Are they ready for a conversation? Are they ready for a call?
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about the volume approach versus the focus approach. Do you treat them differently? Are they treated the same, but you're just going deeper into the account for the focus? What's the difference in approach between the two?
Yeah, for me, one is more, one is far more strategic than the other. Right. So
a more account-based marketing type approach, a one-to-one, one-to-few type approach. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly that. So, and still in the context of a enterprise, B2B enterprise sale, you might have an understanding customer profile is, and there are quite literally thousands of companies that you could target.
Yeah.
And so, how are you approaching those, and how can you contact as many of them as possible, versus right, here are 10 accounts or 2 accounts or 50 accounts, a smaller number of accounts that we can start to work on strategically. So what do we know about the account? How many stakeholders should we be targeting? What level of research should we be doing on the account and each of those people? What insight should we be creating with a view of teaching them? Back to the conversation we were having earlier, and that requires a lot more time, a lot more focus.
And I guess this is where the intent data helps, right? Because it means you're focusing time on accounts that actually warrant that that investment, right?
Exactly that.
For everybody listening, please do share your questions and thoughts in the chat. We're taking them as we go. Where I can't fit them in, I will answer them at the very end, so don't think you're being ignored. Let's get back to it. So one of the, you've talked a bit about, relationship first approach with following up with these accounts via the social channels. What about the messaging that you're using? Obviously, with the intent data, you are getting the topics that particular company is interested in. How are you using that within messaging to then attract attention when you do shift from that initial relationship approach to more focused on what you're actually trying to introduce to them?
So it's a constant balance between the two types, right? So when you say messaging, I'm not just thinking about the message I send to an individual. Messaging for me is everything around the development of your personal brand and the content that you're creating. And so certainly when you're not relying on the marketing department to write content for you, and you're creating it yourself, you can think about what you want to write about that is relevant to your target audience. Right. So personally, I've always got that in mind, and I think salespeople should have that in mind, because you can talk to your prospect without talking directly to your prospect. And again, that comes back to the dark funnel. Your audience is still seeing that content. In some cases, they're still interacting with it. Great. Direct messaging itself is, I'm a big fan of keeping it relationship first, especially if you have got a volume of contacts to go after. You can afford to keep it relationship first, and just keep the volume of messages going out without bringing the sales message in. We've found that when we've tested a typical insight-led sales message with a relationship first message, the rate in which we're connecting with those new contacts is significantly less for the insight-led approach. Somewhere in the region of 25% increase in engagement with the relationship-led approach compared to that insight-led approach. And so if we're using the intent data to know where to focus, then we're increasing our chances of connecting with the right people in the right companies.
And then do you differ, or do you change? So do you change any of the messaging based on the topics that are being shared with you, or is it the same therefore for each person regardless?
Not on the volume-based approach, but on the focused account-based approach. Yes.
So you have different talk tracks basically for each cluster or account.
try different things, and it's not just about the content you're creating and the message you're sending the individual. It's also about how you're engaging with their content.
Okay.
You know, how you're engaging with, and if they don't create their own content, how you're engaging with content that they are engaged with, whichever the digital platform. You know, again, not just LinkedIn or Twitter, but also Guild, because you're invisible to these people unless you're proactively engaging with content that they're engaged with, or in groups that they are part of. And the initial step is to become visible to your target audience. And a lot of companies don't have, you know, deep pockets, big budgets for continuing to run paid media campaigns to try and make the company visible. So it's far more cost effective if the individuals are doing that.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And for those that don't know, Guild is a community platform where people can come together and talk about different topics. And both myself and Alex actually run the B2B sales and marketing channel within there. So if you are interested in becoming a part of that, just message either myself or Alex, and we can get you an invite to join. No problem at all.
Yeah.
One of the questions earlier on was from Abbott about eyeballs on what to do for more eyeballs on your customer. I mean, it relates to some of the stuff we were just talking about with Alex just now. This is obviously sales-led rather than a marketing-led session. So, but from the marketing side, you can combine the intent data with LinkedIn advertising or display advertising to increase the number of eyeballs that you get on what you're doing, and obviously encourage greater conversion for when Alex comes along with his team to do the social selling piece that he's been talking about. Just drives the numbers up even further. Even further. Okay. Any other comments, Alex? Anything I've missed that you think we should cover?
I don't think so.
No, well, we've ticked off everything I've got on my list here. The one last thing that I am introducing from this session onwards is 3 questions, and I'm going to ask these to every single panelist going forward. The first one is, how important is tech in sales?
Yeah. So I think this is a really good question. The quick answer is, well, it depends if it's from a sales rep perspective or a sales leader perspective.
Okay.
And I talk a lot from personal experience. I've really struggled with using sales tech effectively. Intent data isn't I mean, it is tech, but it isn't.
So good sales tech isn't sales tech.
Yeah, good sales tech. I think you got to, for me, from a sales rep perspective, what is it that I can use that will enable me to do my job better and accelerate performance? And so it's probably bits of tech that the sales rep can use for them to do their job better and be more successful. As a sales leader, I mean, reporting is a big thing, and so the question is, how important is tech in sales? I mean, it's very important. I guess it depends which way you look at it.
Yeah, exactly. It's critical, but you can get lost in it if you're not careful.
Yeah, like anything. Yeah. And that really is the key. Actually, I'd add to it. Maybe there was another topic around measurement, but that it's very easy to get lost in using reporting and sales tech for reporting to measure the wrong things that then encourage the wrong behaviors from your sales team. So you really do have to be careful with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, question 2. What is the one thing someone should take away from today's session?
Well, the obvious answer, of course, is to speak with Riaz about Radiate and Alex about Supero.
Thanks, Alex.
I have nothing else.
Well, I'd like to think it's the value of intent data, but
of course.
Come and talk to either of us. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, question 3. What is your go-to book for every salesperson to read?
Yeah, I don't have to think about this one too hard, to be honest, because Challenger has been by far and away the best investment I've ever made in a book, and I would say Challenger Sale as well as the Challenger Customer. So 2 books that were written by Brent Adamson.
Yeah, both excellent books. I've read both as well.
Really good. And the Challenger Customer, what I really like about that book, the kind of the sequel, if you like, to the Challenger Sale, is how it sort of digs into not something that they got wrong with the Challenger Sale, but a different perspective on census within a B2B sale, complex B2B. It's really interesting.
Worth checking out. Thank you for that, Alex.
Cool.
With that, I think that is the end of today's session. So thank you to everybody for joining us, and we will be along shortly with another event. The next one will be in the new year. The title I shall release probably in the next 2 weeks, all being well, once the speakers have been confirmed. Thank you, Alex, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
With that, please do fill out the survey. It's in the comments there for you. You can see the link right there. So do complete that. And with that, I shall see you next time. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye all.